Good afternoon and welcome everyone. My name is Jason Copping, MLA for Calgary Varsity, Minister of Labour and Immigration for the province of Alberta, and I want to thank you for joining us here today. This is the first event in a series of events promoting opening and welcoming workplaces in Alberta. As a former human resources professional, MLA for Calgary Varsity, Minister of Labour and Immigration, and a father of 3 daughters, I understand the need for and the value of diversity and inclusivity in the workplace. This event is an opportunity to profile some incredible women in leadership positions who can speak to the value women bring to leadership roles, the challenges and barriers they needed to overcome, and what recommendations they have for other women who want to pursue leadership positions. We are also holding this event in recognition of International Women's Day, which is next week, Monday, March the 8th. Now, before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge a number of people that help make this event possible. First, I'd like to thank Agate Labs, Agate Foundation, and John DeSanti, who are allowing us to use this place, the Michael DeSanti Center for Excellence. Now, the purpose of the Agate Foundation is to unite people who share a common direction in building, creating, and healing through both science and scientific technologies. So thanks again for allowing us to use this fantastic facility, and thank you as well for even going to the extent of building plexiglass to protect our speakers and ensure that we are compliant with COVID rules. I also like to acknowledge my colleague, Jeremy Nixon, MLA for Calgary Klein, whose riding we are in right now. And most of all, I'd like to thank our speakers who have generously donated their time this afternoon to talk about their experiences. Ms. Gita Sankapanavar, she is the chairman of the University of Calgary Board. Marissa Reckman, president of Agate Labs. Katrina Lemay-Doan, Olympian and president of Sport Calgary. Minister Leela here, my colleague and friend. And also my daughters, Kat, Genovia, and Natalia, who will be doing introductions today. In addition to showcasing some incredible leaders, this event is also an opportunity to make a donation to 2 fantastic organizations that support women and support women in leadership roles. The first organization is a Calgary YWCA. The YWCA supports clients in meeting their immediate and most basic needs, then works directly with them to create positive change in their lives. It offers numerous programs, including mentorship programs for women. And thanks very much to Sue Tomney, CEO, for having the YW involved today. The second organization is Fast and Female. Fast and Female is a Canadian charity on a mission to keep girls aged 8 to 14 healthy and active in sports. Fast and Female believes in the power of positive sport experiences and role models to give girls leadership, teamwork, and resiliency skills. And I want to give thanks to Shanda Crawford, Development Director, and also an Olympian. And as an aside, our family and our daughters had an opportunity to attend a number of these events, which were absolutely fantastic, and it was they who identified this as one of the charities we should highlight today. Now, we have a couple of videos for both YW and Fast and Female, and we'd like to show them to you now.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sue Tomney, and I'm the CEO of YW Calgary, and I'm very pleased to virtually join you here today. Today's panel is a welcome conversation on gender diversity and inclusion at work, and we're grateful to partner with the Honourable Minister of Labour and Immigration, Jason Copping, and the Honourable Minister of Status of Women, Leela here. I can tell you from my own experience that gender diversity makes the world of difference to a healthy and successful workplace. At the YW, we know that women and gender diverse people must have a seat at the table so that we can address the impacts of the pandemic, prosper together, and create a city that sees all citizens thrive. And that's why we've been committed to this work since 1907 at YW by providing childcare, newcomer language instruction, mental health, housing, and domestic violence supports to our community. Our frontline teams have worked tirelessly through the COVID-19 pandemic, ensuring that these programs and services have remained accessible to women and their families in Calgary. Many of those team members are women with young families, and they have bravely continued in their work despite the challenges that they face. Challenges like increased risk to their physical and mental health, keeping up with changing protocols, and sustaining relationships with their loved ones. We believe that everyone has a role to play in creating an open and welcoming workplace, and I'm excited to learn more today alongside you. Lastly, on March 11th, YW Calgary's 10th annual Y Whisper virtual gala will explore the role of women and gender diverse people in our economic recovery. We've partnered with the Walrus to bring you this exciting and thought-provoking event. Tickets are available now at ywcalgary.ca/ywhisper. So with that, thank you for your support, Minister, and back to you.
So much, and that was Sue Tomney, CEO of YW Calgary. And now we have another video from Fast and Female. To Fast and Female, and again, for them being involved in this event. And to start things off, our family has made a donation of $100 each to each organization in lieu of a registration fee. And we would encourage everyone watching today to pick a charity or two, go online, and make a donation. Lastly, I would like to introduce the panel chair for this event, and my dear friend, Minister Leela Ahir. Minister Ahir was first elected as a member of the Legislative Assembly of Alberta for the constituency of Chestermere-Rockview in 2015. Prior to entering politics, Leela was a professional vocal coach and music teacher, owned and operated businesses as an entrepreneur, and was heavily involved in the arts, volunteerism, and community service. She was appointed as Alberta's Minister of Culture, Multiculturalism, and the Status of Women in 2019, and she works tirelessly to promote an inclusive Alberta. Please welcome my friend, colleague, and a tremendous leader, Leela Ahir.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Minister Copping, and to everybody who's here today. This is so exciting. I don't know if you can tell about this plexiglass that is in between all of these wonderful speakers today, and thank you so much to Agate for being able to do that. That's just beautiful. It's just so nice to be amongst people. This is just lovely. I just wanted to, before I start, of course, my name is Leela Ahir, and I'm so honored to be your Minister of Culture, Multiculturalism, and the Status of Women. But to begin this meeting in a good way, to make sure that we're grounded in this beautiful conversation that we're going to have today, I would like to honor Treaty 6, 7, and 8 in Alberta, our brothers and sisters from our First Nations, people who walked, played, and worked this space and this area for thousands of years before us. And also to my Métis sisters and brothers from all of the regions across Alberta who hold a very deep love of this land. So to our Inuit, Métis, and First Nations brothers and sisters, thank you so much for sharing this beautiful space that we are going to have an amazing conversation with these incredible ladies. So I just wanted to say that Minister Copping, to have the opportunity to be able to come together with you today, to women don't need to be empowered, but we sure do need the space to show how empowered we are. And thank you for creating this space for us today in order to be able to have this really important conversation so that we can shine a light on just how far we've come and where we want to go. I think the hope is for all of us that one day we will wonder why there was ever an issue with gender equity, and that we will look back on these days as trailblazing into a space where all of us have equal opportunity to do all of the things that all of us are meant to do. Minister Copping had mentioned it earlier that March 8th coming up here is International Women's Day. So thank you for that acknowledgement. I think every day should be Women's Day, but that's just me. we just came out of Black History Month, and one of the things that we learn when we have these moments, it's not just about the month or just about the day. These are jumping off places, trampolines into the future, so that we live viscerally with these changes and the culture shift that must happen every single day with everything that we do. But on March 8th, we actually joined globally with the world, not only to acknowledge the incredible accomplishments done by women, but because collectively together, we elevate women, we elevate community, we elevate people. And when we stand side by side with the incredible people who stand shoulder to shoulder with women, ultimately our communities are better for that, and we as a community are better for that. And I thank the strong women that are here today that have already done so much to break those glass ceilings. So when we talk about everything from the Famous Five, and who here learned about the Famous Five in high school or in school? Did you? I did not. I'm so glad you did. This is one of the things that needs to happen. We need to acknowledge this incredible history in our province. We actually just named the plaza in Edmonton, the Federal Plaza, after Violet King Henry, the very first Black woman lawyer in Canada to go to the bar, and she is educated in Calgary. So to have a place where we fight racism every single day with this incredible woman who will be acknowledged every single day when you bring your families to the federal building was such a huge privilege. And we have to continue to recognize those achievements every single day, because it's not just about representing diversity, is it? It's actually representing, period. Coming forward with the strength, the vitality of what diversity actually brings to all of us. And when we have that inclusive workforce, we know that we have a better economy, we see more innovation, we see a change in community engagement at those tables. So, enough from me. Let's talk about the inspirational women that I have sitting beside me here today. We are joined by three wonderful women leaders from across Alberta. I'm going to be leading a discussion with all of them here about their experiences, and because we seek advice and wisdom from you for moving forward, because all of the little girls that are out there watching are inspired by you every single day, and they're going to do marvelous and incredible things and be the leaders of the future because you led them there. So I would like to first introduce Gita Sankampanvar. Did I say that correctly? Can you say that for us?
Sankampanvar.
I was so close. Sankampanvar, Chair of the Board of Governors of the University. I have to tell you, when I saw that appointment, I was literally doing backflips. I was so excited about that. Marissa Reckman, the President and CEO of Agate Laboratories. Woo, woo, woo. And also, of course, our amazing Katrina LeMay-Doan, pardon me, the President and CEO of Sport Calgary. And it's always such a pleasure to spend time with you, Katrina. Thank you so much. So it's important to have knowledge sharing sessions. What we build from this is, like I said, women don't need to be empowered. You just need to give us the space to be able to show how powerful we actually are. So this agenda is an opportunity to hear from women who are truly empowered and to follow with the panel discussion. So I'm going to invite up the wonderful and amazing Genovia Copping to do the very first introduction. Thank you so much, Genovia.
Hi, my name is Genovia Copping, and today it is my pleasure to introduce Ms. Gita Sankampanvar. Gita is the co-founder and president of Grataphon Asset Management, a $1 billion energy investment firm based in Calgary. She serves as the chair of the Board of Directors for Daytona Power, as well as the chair of the Board of Governors for the University of Calgary. Prior to filling these positions, Gita was vice president and head of strategic global outsourcing for Cambridge Solutions, a cross-border financial service firm between the United States and Asia, and she was a founding partner at MainCorp Solutions and IRI. Gita is acknowledged as an international leader, an advocate for women's equality, and a dedicated philanthropist. She is one of Canada's top 100 most powerful women, Alberta's 50 most influential people, and Calgary's top 40 under 40. Please welcome Ms. Gita Sinka-Panavar.
Thank you so much for that very kind introduction. So my goal over the next couple of minutes is just to tell you a little bit about myself and my journey, and then I'm so grateful to be part of this great gathering of women and this discussion. But before I start, I want to say thank you to you, Minister Copping. The light that you are shining on such an incredibly important issue, and the allyship that you are showing is basically one of the key tenets that's going to be required, that is required, to building a more radically inclusive, just, and sustainable world for all. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for doing this. To tell you a little bit about myself, I moved to Calgary about 10 years ago because I met and married a Manitoban Icelander who happened to live here. And so after dating long distance for about 2.5 years, I moved out west to make an honest man of him. So when I came to Calgary, I didn't know a single person, and I didn't even know how to spell the words oil and gas. All I knew about it from the work I had done before was that energy was a positive expected value hedge on the emerging markets. But this was 2010, and what Calgary showed me was the power of strong economic growth to support inclusivity. So I reached out and started to meet people. I asked for introductions. I asked to learn about this city, our community, the work that we do here, the values, what's important. And the response I got when I started doing that 10 years ago was just tremendous. Everybody I met introduced me to 5 more people, who introduced me to 5 more people, who introduced me to 5 more people. And it was my first view into the values of this community, of this city, of this province. And it was one where effectively everybody had on the door an unwritten rule of trespassers will be recruited. And no one cared what color skin I had, what gender I was, who I loved at home, what language I spoke, who I prayed to. All they cared were the skills that I brought to the table. And so I am an entrepreneur, I'm a business builder, and I partnered with a great friend and mentor now here in Calgary. And we built our business into a little over $1 billion in energy investments here in the city. That's my for-profit life. For my not-for-profit life, I just to tell you a little bit about myself, I come from poverty. I come from true rural poverty. Like many of you who may be watching, I am an immigrant. And I started learning about the values of service to community from my father, who was raising a family of 5 on $19,000 a year. And yet every time he ran into anybody who needed anything, he would always give $1. And so when I was in high school and college, all I had to give was my time. And so I volunteered. I volunteered in every way I could. I volunteered with seniors. I volunteered in raising money for our community. And then post-college, as I entered the workforce, I all of a sudden had the burgeoning skills that I could also give in service of my community. And so I started not just to volunteer time, but to provide my skills, and then later, as my career accelerated, to also provide financial support. And over the last 25 years or so, my values have really crystallized into 3 core values. Number 1, it's education, and it's that education changes the trajectory of people's lives. And I know this because it changed the trajectory of my families and my communities and myself. And I express this through my work with the amazing institution that is the University of Calgary, as well as I work with the Loran Foundation and others. Number two is I care deeply about helping the world's most vulnerable. And again, just the same way that my family was helped throughout our journey. And I am all UNICEF all the time. And I serve on the board of UNICEF and in any way I can. And then my third core value is accelerating the advancement of women in diverse communities. Everybody needs a helping hand. And again, just like I received from so many people, I try and do the same because I believe that we truly stand on the shoulders of giants. For me, this conversation, and thank you so much for bringing it up, on inclusivity is so important right now because I think this year of COVID has just pulled back the covers on the deep systemic inequalities that are faced in our society today. And I don't think we can go back. And we all have to agree that we will not go back. And so for someone like me who's been lucky to be deeply successful in my life now, what I've done is I have decided to just transform my entire life and focus on social impact for the next decades. That is now my journey. And so I'm really looking forward to this conversation today and being part of it with all of you. And again, thank you, Minister Copping and Minister, for including us in this conversation. This is such an important one for this time. Thank you.
And Natalia, I believe you're doing the next introduction. Would you mind joining us? Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. My name is Natalia Copping. I'm 11 years old, and today I am pleased to introduce our next speaker, Marissa Reckman, CEO of Agat Labs. Marissa graduated from Lakehead University with a BSc degree in chemistry with honors. In 2006, Marissa joined Agat Labs and quickly gained experience within each of the company's many operating divisions. As the company expanded nationally, Marissa's leadership was essential in helping Agat gain a solid footprint for its numerous services from coast to coast in 43 locations. In her various roles, Marissa was responsible for guaranteeing coordination of Agat's objectives in each of the operating units across Canada. Marissa has proven herself to be a strongly devoted leader, holding the best interests of her clients and colleagues while serving to strengthen communications and advance scientific services, quality, and best business practices. Please welcome Marissa Reckman, CEO of Agat Labs.
Well, thank you so much, Natalia, for that kind introduction, and to your sisters, Kat and Genovia, for introducing all of us today. I'd like to start off by thanking Honourable Minister Copping for putting this day together. Like it's already been echoed up here, I think that it is an incredible opportunity for us to all be here and have this discussion that I think is so very needed. And to yourself, Minister, here for being with us here today and to take us through this journey and this conversation. I'm actually already blown away. I don't know where to start in the conversation as well after Honourable Minister here has already talked and we've heard Gita's story. But to give you a little bit of insight into who I am and how I got here, as was noted, I'm currently CEO of Agat Laboratories. I've been in this role for just over 2 years. I have been at the company for just over 10, and I have about 16 years of experience in the analytical lab space and tied to the oil and gas industry and the environmental industries that we serve. My journey actually started here in Calgary. I do like to point out that I am Calgarian by birth. My birthright is here. But I grew up in Northern Ontario. I grew up in Thunder Bay. That is home to my parents, home to my family. Much of my extended family is there. So we moved back when I was quite young. It is where I fostered all of my values and morals and principles and roots, and I stayed there, as was noted, through university. I had the pleasure of playing varsity athletics out there, which I'm so pleased to see that Fast and Female is a part of this, and the notation that your own daughters, Minister Copping, are so involved, because I think that was a big part of keeping me on the right track and one of the reasons why I was able to be successful in life itself. I graduated with an honors Bachelor of Science majoring in chemistry. And at that point in time, it was time for me to get serious about life. And I have a very strong and independent mother who was keen to say that I should spread my wings and fly and find an opportunity wherever that landed me. And so she really challenged me to step to the plate. Calgary at that point in time offered ample opportunities. It was one of the boom cycles and definitely had a lot of interest. And of course, having connections here from my early life, I felt like this was a good journey. So I headed west, and I was quite blessed and quite lucky to find Agate shortly thereafter. I met two of the senior vice presidents who noted that there was an opportunity at the table, and I was hired on as a business development representative in the environmental division, which is something that I was very much looking for because I loved the science and the technical aspect from my educational background and interests. But I come from a long line of entrepreneurs as well, too. And I tried to tell myself all through growing up that I didn't want to have anything to do with business, and I didn't want to have anything to do with being an entrepreneur because I saw just the challenges that your family and your parents face in really growing and building their own business. And I thought to myself, no, it just, I don't want that. But I think when it's bred into you and it's a part of who you are, it eventually finds you. So I had the opportunity to find that role within the company at a time that Agate was diversifying tremendously, not only in terms of the number of services that we were bringing to the table, but also the geographies. And that in itself not only afforded myself an opportunity to grow my career, but many across the company. We were very lucky that the company really fostered internal talent and really tried to focus on development from within. So I took on numerous roles, escalating responsibilities. I moved from looking at the environmental division to looking at oil sands, petroleum, geology, food testing, all the different service lines, and then also looking at different regions. So starting in the prairies and moving to Western Canada and then to national roles. I ended up stepping away from the company to move to the environmental consulting industry because that is also an area of keen focus for me, and I wanted to see a different side of the industry itself. And the environmental industry and spectrum was so important to so many, and I really wanted to understand what consultants were really doing on these sites. So I spent 5 years in that area for a firm out of Calgary as well too, focused in Western Canada, Australia, Summit Earth, and it was a wonderful opportunity to again expand. And then I came back to Agate, and one of the big focuses for me in coming back was the development of the Agate Foundation, which was noted a little bit early on here. Again, kind of leaning on those values and morals and principles, I was also raised to really understand that service is your life, and that we are all here to help one another try and get ahead, and that it's not just about an independent journey. So when John, laid out for me what he envisioned for the foundation, not only was that of high interest for me, it was also the projects that we were going to be getting involved with, which tied to how science, innovation, and technology can really help to solve issues at hand, mental health and wellness, addictions, and I've seen firsthand in my own extended family how that really can have a tremendous impact on a family and lives. So I knew that long-term I wanted to be a part of that journey, and I wanted to be a part of that plan. So I came back and was welcomed into the senior executive team. And then over the course of the last 3 years, we've transitioned into a succession plan that has fostered an amazing and talented management team right across the board. So it's definitely not just me, it is many that we've got working here, and I am just lucky to be a part of that. And so the future that we see for many very much ties to this discussion. I'm tremendously blessed to be at a company where we see a 50% balance in gender diversity, but there's still so much work to be done right across the board. And that is something that is not only important to us, but again, we know that is important to all of the communities across Canada that we're involved with. So that's the story of how I got here and how we move forward.
Thank you so much, Melissa. And last but not least, we have the lovely Kat coming up to do her introduction.
Good afternoon. My name is Kat Copping, and it is my pleasure to introduce Katrina Olympian and President of Sport Calgary. She was the fastest woman on ice, carrying the flag into the opening ceremonies at her 4th Olympics in 2002. She was the first Canadian and the only Canadian woman to defend an Olympic gold title in the 500-meter speed skating event. Not only did Katrina break 13 world records during her career on ice, but she currently holds the 10-year standing Olympic record in the 500-meter event. Katrina's accomplishment in her sport has earned her the 2002 Lou Marsh Award as Canada's Athlete of the Year, and she is a 3-time recipient of the Bobby Rosenfeld Award as Canada's Female Athlete of the Year. Katrina has been inducted into Canada's Sports Hall of Fame, the Canadian Olympic Committee Sports Hall of Fame, and appointed an Officer of the Order of Canada. In addition to her extraordinary athletic career, Katrina is a talented, bilingual, motivational speaker, and is currently the president of Sport Calgary. She was recently named chef de mission in the Beijing 2022 Winter Olympic Games. Katrina's hard work, persistence, and determination have led her to not only shatter records among the skating world, but break through gender barriers in sport and leadership. Please join me in welcoming the inspirational Katrina LeMay-Doan.
Thank you, Kat. What a pleasure it is just to be a part of this. Thank you, Mr. Copping, Minister here. Really honored to share this platform with these incredible leaders. And, you know, Minister here, you talked about we just need to show how empowered we are. But I think any age, any woman, wherever, girl, whatever stage you're at, we still need to be inspired. And so that's what I'm excited about, because it's quite intimidating. I mean, you know, as you guys tell your stories, it's a very diverse panel. And I don't have the letters after my name that you both do. And that is intimidating. And yet it's part of my story and hopefully the way I can inspire those who are watching, because it's a different path that I took. And I have parents who were immigrants who came from Britain. We all have Scottish names because we were going to go back. But funny enough, my Scottish cousins all have what I would say normal names. So my sisters and I, nobody can ever pronounce our names properly. But my parents are, you know, they are full in, they're engineers, and my sisters and extended family, all in the environmental geology side, and I'm the one who took this weird path of sport. And I know when I first started, my parents said, okay, that's just something that you're gonna do, it's a pastime. And then when I moved to Calgary just after the '88 games and continued to pursue it, it became my life. And so it is a different path, and part of our journeys, you know, I would never change anything because it's a part of who we are. People often ask, I have a 16-year-old daughter and a 14-year-old son, and people often say, do you hope that your children follow that same path? And girls, plug your ears. Because I would say I love that they are involved in sport, because sport is so important in who I am and just in our health and our life. But this journey that I chose, it is, as a parent, it probably wouldn't be the journey that I would choose for my children. Saw some incredible places around the world, little towns in Italy that have a guest house, a cafe, and an oval. And you stand on the line and you see the Dolomite Mountains, and you know, you think life doesn't get any better. But then you retire from sport, and I retired when I was 32 years old and had my children and got right into media. And people say life is an adjustment. It was an adjustment, but I just continued on because I've always been, you know, I get labeled as I'm sure many women do, you know, type A, driven, you know, and I embrace that, because I would never ask for forgiveness for being driven and hardworking and pursuing. And I love that my 16-year-old daughter can see that. And I love that my 14-year-old son can see that. And you know, if he chooses a partner, that he will choose a strong, independent female. And I'm proud of that. So the media stuff continued and went on and traveled the world and did 5 games with media and loved it and embraced it, and realized that what I'd wanted to accomplish, I'd sort of checked the box and said, I'm good with that, so what next? And I will tell you, it's very intimidating, because it was 4.5 years ago, I went in for my very first actual job interview. So I was 45 years old. I just turned 50 at Christmas, so I embraced that, I'm going to tell you that. I was 45, and I went into a job interview. It was the first time that I had sat. I had done sort of evaluations, but never a full job interview. And, you know, I now love to tell that because other women will be in that situation, and that's okay. And it's okay to be scared. It's okay to have stood on an Olympic starting line, but be afraid because this was my first job interview. And it was with Sport Calgary, and I didn't have the letters, and I, on paper, probably didn't qualify. But I was so fortunate that in this situation, they looked at somebody who had dealt with positions of stress and positions of pressure and overcome major setbacks of falling at Olympic Games and was able to keep pursuing that. And I could stand in a room and maybe be intimidated, but pretend I wasn't. And so I was so fortunate that they saw that opportunity. And then I was able to learn from the people around me. And now to be in this position as president and CEO of Sport Calgary, and to be in this, you know, to be able to learn about the governance. And I'm on various boards, and we've met various times with Special Olympics, being on the board of Special Olympics Canada, vice chair of Canada Games Council. You continue to learn. And what I love is that I will never apologize for not knowing many things. And I don't know a lot of stuff. I continually learn from my very small team of, we're just 4 in the office. But I continually learn about budgeting and all of that stuff because it's not something, it's something I think I figured I should know, and I don't know, and I'm always learning. And so hopefully, you know, this conversation, young girls, women, whatever age, whatever industry, that they can be inspired and understand that they're worthy and that they don't need to know everything. And they don't need to apologize for being great. They don't need to apologize for messing up. And that, you know, through this, and again, thank you to this team for putting this together, that we can be inspired because we have come so far, but we have a long way to go as well. And so, you know, I'm very proud and honored to be a part of this and learn and be inspired from you all.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Katrina. Never apologize for learning. Like that is just, and there's been so much that we can unpack here and so many great things that all of you have said, even just in our opening comments, have been overwhelming, and I feel very inspired. And I'm sure, and can we give a small round of applause to our lovely copying girls that did all of the wonderful introductions? That was amazing and so unbelievably well spoken. Thank you so much for doing that. So we're going to enter into our Q&A portion. So I have a few questions that I think that we'd love to hear everybody's responses, and you know, please take your time, and there's no rush here because we don't always have the privilege of spending time with mentors. And you were talking about inspiration, Katrina, and a lot of it is about mentorship and being able to bring forward that energy to be able to clear the pathway so that young, powerful women are able to see themselves in the future that they are looking for. So with that, I'm going to bring up my first question, and I think what we'll do is we'll start with Gita on this one, and then we'll go to Marissa, and then we'll end with you on this first question, if that's okay. All right, so the first question is, what advice would you give to other women or girls who are looking to achieve their goals? So we'll start with you, Gita. So do you want me to repeat that, or
No, I got it. That's a great question, and I actually wrote down some words as you guys were both speaking. I love your word of entrepreneurship and being an entrepreneur and thinking about that. And we do have in our community the University of Calgary, which is the entrepreneurship university for Canada, and the Hunter Hub for entrepreneurship. So I just loved that. And I loved what you said, which was, I wrote down the word perseverance. And so that just perfectly is the starting point to build for me on the answer to your question. What is the advice I would give? So I think that there's a couple of things I would say. Number one is the deep importance of building relationships and continuously expanding your personal and professional networks. And so now This is with the benefit of hindsight of about 25 years, so I probably should have read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and I probably should have read it more than once. And so this is truly with hindsight. But I think as you think about your corporate career, or your academic career, or your sports career, or your entrepreneurial career, I think that there is one of the first things to realize is that it is no longer a ladder that we are climbing. That the corporate world today, or the world around us, is effectively more akin to a jungle gym, where you have to be looking constantly above you, around you, and building relationships with everybody that you can see, because you never know where advice, opportunity, inspiration can come from. And so that really was a big one for me. The second thing I would say, which you touched on already a little bit, is to have the courage to be bold, tenacious, and driven. Leadership is hard. It is lonely. It is not for the faint of heart. But if you want it, if you embrace it, it is one of the most fulfilling things that you can ever do in your life. The return is just so great in terms of the impact that you receive back from your activities. And so I think that, you know, one of the challenges that you also talked about is that this is not yet commonplace. There are that women in leadership is not yet commonplace. Less than 20% of boards in Canada have women. Less than 6% of the Fortune 500 is female CEOs. And as you think about a couple of the key pieces and the key pieces of advice that I would give you, it's that, you know, have the courage to be aggressive, have the courage sometimes to be unreasonable, because that is what's going to make you a change agent and to create that preferred future that you want to build. I think I would also add to that volunteer. Service. I gained so much so early from my volunteer experiences. The leadership lessons I learned, the mentors I received, the sponsors that reached out their hands to help me in my life, it all came from starting out with volunteerism. And those skills just translated so perfectly into work and gave me a set of skills and experiences in leadership before I yet had earned them in my job. And so I think those are probably the things that I would say. And I wrote down one more comment when you were speaking, and it's something that somebody told me early on in my life, and it was about, you said that you would never apologize for learning. And so the comment is that great leaders recognize that every interaction with another person is an opportunity to learn. And somebody gave me that advice many, many years ago, and I think it still holds true today. So, number one, remember, life is a jungle gym. Reach out, interact with everybody. Number two, the immense importance of not just relationship building, but being bold, driven, tenacious, persevering, persistent in what you want to do. Number three, volunteer. Service to your community, to creating and being and building the change in the world and the world that you want to see. And then finally, be a lifelong learner.
Marissa, we'll go to you. Thank you so much, Gita.
Thank you so much, Gita. Those were wonderful, wonderful advice, and much of it I would align with as well too, and it will tie into parts of my answers as well. But on that notion of developing relationships and volunteering, I couldn't agree more, because I've seen for myself tremendous opportunities where you can actually combine both of those as well too, to help in both sides of your life. I've been members of the boards, Canadian Land Reclamation Association board, you know, nonprofit, volunteer, lots of added hours that those boards put in, as you both know, but it really helps to not only develop yourself professionally, but also to try and give back. I've got two key pieces. When I get asked this question by anybody in my life, it really both very much resonate when I try and reflect on, you know, how did I get here in my life, or what works for me, what made me who I am. The first is that, and I would say this for everybody because I do also see this, sadly, so often in females. And the first is that you have to believe in yourself. You know, there's so many individuals. We all have dreams, we all have goals, and we all have aspirations. And every person can attain those. You know, when you work hard and you put your mind to something and you want to give it your all and you're passionate about it, the world is prosperous with opportunities in front of it. But there's still so many people out there, I think, that are their own worst enemies. You know, you start to doubt yourself. You start to wonder, well, if there's only 6%, how am I gonna make it? You know, or if I don't see somebody who looks like me or sounds like me, or you know, even to sit here on a stage with Katrina to say, well, I didn't have the credentials behind my name. I mean, you would never think that for someone who's accomplished everything that she has accomplished, that there would be a moment of doubt in her mind, right? But I think for all of us, that's where we're always challenged, is really understanding, if I want it, I have to believe that I can go get it. And I have to believe that I'm gonna have the support around me to get there. And it's gonna be a hard journey, and it's gonna take work, and it's gonna be long, and there's gonna be challenges and barriers and days that you feel like, you know what, I can't get through this. But at the end of the day, if you still know, you know, I can do this, that's my number one piece of advice. Don't ever lose that hope, I think. And then the second is that not only do I believe that the individual needs to believe in themselves, but you need to develop a support network around you that lifts you up and believes in you. And I think that that's so important and so valuable. And you need to take inventory, I think, on a daily, weekly, whatever that basis is. You need to take inventory in your life to understand, are the people that I'm giving my time to and that are around me, are they lifting me up? Are they making me feel like I can do this? I'm absolutely blessed to have a spouse and a loving husband that has always been there for me. He is, probably my biggest cheerleader and makes me think that I can do anything. He's never once doubted what I could achieve, and he is there for me and supports me in every decision. My family has been like that. My friends have been like that. But also the individuals that I surround myself from a professional perspective, and that's not always available, right? And I've seen a lot of people get themselves into spots where you can see that they don't have the support system around them professionally, and then they have to make the decision, do I stay here? Do I keep myself in this experience, or do I take the chance to say, no, I'm grounded in that value system, and I'm going to make the decision to say this is unacceptable. So those are definitely like the two key pieces that I would say. Believe in yourself and make sure at all times that the people that you're surrounding yourself with are filling your glass and they're not draining you from what you can achieve.
Thank you, Venus. Over to you, Katrina.
Sure, I'm just, we constantly wear masks. It's our, I've never drank this much water before this last year. I love listening to the answers, and I'm going to actually just continue on your train of thought, because I think it's often the energy, I often say the energy suckers, or because if you give energy, you can't be the constant giver all the time, and that is tough. And so that support system, and it's funny where you find the support system. And I think that's what we have to be open to, is don't expect that it's necessarily family, necessarily friends. It can be literally somebody in a store that you pass by that will lift you up, and whether it's their attitude, what they say, a smile. And so I think that's, we have to search for it, and it does take work. I'm on my own with my kids, and it was about 3 years ago. I was learning to back up my fifth wheel. And it's the smallest little thing. And I was getting so frustrated because I was like, I can't go camping with you guys unless I can park this on my own. And I got out of the truck. My son was 11 at the time, and I was starting to have a breakdown. And he's like, Mommy, you're super mommy. You can do absolutely anything. And it broke my heart in joy. But sometimes it's those, it's the people who literally allow you to believe for 1 second. So that can be anywhere in our world. And we have to be open to learn from people that we might not even know. And on that also is the belief that we can do it. And every day that can be a battle. You can believe 1 minute, I'm good enough. You know what? I'm ready. And 5 minutes later, be doubting it. And I saw it in my career. And when people look back, I mean, girls, if you've watched any of my races, you will see that I wore dark glasses. And I didn't wear dark glasses because I was wanting to intimidate people. It was so people didn't see the fear in my eyes. So going into my 4th Olympics, undefeated that year, people expected me to be super confident, and you can sit up here, you can stand wherever, you can be a president, CEO, you can do anything, and people think, oh, they're confident. And a lot of people wear masks. And I remember going into those games, there was a statistic, and it was if you're into statistics, no Canadian individual had defended a gold medal, ever. Male, female, summer, winter. So this statistic had been over 100 years old. So no Canadian had ever won gold and 4 years later defended it. So going into the games, people said, well, can Katrina do it? And if you look at statistics, they're not in my favor. And that was really weighing on me. But I had a teammate who came up to me the day before my race and said, do you know that nobody's ever defended a gold medal before? And I wanted to hit her because I didn't need somebody to tell me that statistic. I knew it. And she said, nobody's ever done it yet, but why should you not be the first? She said, why should you not be the person who's going to pave the way for the rest of the people coming after you? And I think that's the biggest thing, is that it's okay to be that first person. And it's uncomfortable, and it's not normal, and it's lonely, and it's different, but that's okay. Because somebody's going to be watching you. And you might not have that opportunity to meet them, but they're watching you and they're inspired by you. And so it's believing that you can do it. It's embracing those opportunities. And it's okay if for a second you doubt yourself. And for a minute you doubt yourself. And for a month you doubt yourself. And COVID has been tough because we don't necessarily have that level of inspiration and that level of connection for people to inspire us. And so even something like this is what might save some woman or girl who's wondering if she's good enough and can actually take that next step. And so, I don't think we can undervalue moments where we are able to express struggles, successes, and just how they all come together.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you so much, ladies. So I don't know, for me, I take from that, be tenacious and bold, have your support network around you, and don't be afraid to be forward and to take that step out. It's just beautiful advice, and thank you so much and I love how all of you play off of each other's. It just goes to show that strength and that there's a sisterhood there in your very different journeys of how you've gotten to where you are. So I'm going to ask the next question. If it's okay, Marissa, we'll start with you and then go to Katrina and then end with Gita on this next one. So the next question is, what challenges did you face? And you were talking about this a little bit earlier, Marissa, about critical supports to help overcome some of these challenges.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. I think if I looked at my journey, and I had to assess the various challenges, what kind of alignment did they have? What theme was there for what some of these were and what I faced? And I think a lot of it comes down to these, there's definitely barriers, but there's also these preconceived notions that are in people's minds about whether it is what you can achieve or how you got to where you are. I think in some cases, some of the things that we think are actually a benefit, like putting in quotas, sometimes can hinder or be a detriment because people start to wonder, well, is this merit? Is it skill? Or are you a number, right? And I learned that lesson very early on in my career. I was setting up, it was one of my first years with the company. I was setting up a meeting with a prospective client. We had engaged via email. We had a meeting set and booked in less than 24 hours beforehand. He canceled. And he canceled because he said I wasn't welcome at the office. And it was shocking to me. And the reason I wasn't welcome at the office was actually because his female colleagues or counterparts were not comfortable with me being there. And it was because over the years, they had seen situations in which females were hired in business development or sales types roles, and they felt they didn't bring value to the table, and they were there to be a smiling face or to appease a male colleague. And it was the first time in my life, I think, that I actually felt that. You know, I know that a lot of individuals struggle with these kind of things on a daily basis when we're talking about inclusion. And so my heart goes out to these situations and these individuals. But it was the first time for me that I had really come up against this, to feel like, well, I didn't do anything. You don't even know me. We've never met. It was before social media was really out there. They couldn't really get a sense of who I was or my qualifications. So I penned a professional and polite email back, just outlining how disappointed I was and how I really felt like this really fought against that idea of gender equality and the opportunities. And I gave them an idea of, you know, what I felt my own skill and merit was and the value I brought to the table. But for me, that was, you know, that's the first kind of major example that I encountered, and then there's been subsequent with that theme. I think when it comes to the critical supports that have helped me get through, again, it goes back to having that right support system and network around you. And I learned how lucky I was in that capacity. There was an event that I don't talk about often because it was a very uncomfortable situation, but of course in a realm like this, I think it's an important learning lesson. This was some years ago, and there was a professional networking event that we were hosting for a client appreciation. It was hosted at an upscale hotel in Alberta, tied to a very notable environmental industry conference, one of the largest in Canada. You know, nearly 1,000 attendees can attend this event. Our appreciation event has over, you know, a few hundred clients that would be there. Very professional setting. And I was engaged with an industry colleague in a discussion on regulatory updates. And while we were sitting there in the middle of this, I felt someone come behind me and unzip the back of my dress. And it was a client of ours at the time that had obviously had too much to drink, well too much to drink even in a social setting, but certainly for a professional setting. And so in one of the most probably humiliating moments that I had in my life, I also got to see all of the good, you know? So with that one individual who represented a fragment of who I have around me, I immediately got to see all of our colleagues, our clients, our senior leadership and executive at the team at the time come together and rally around me and immediately take charge and showcase that that was completely unacceptable and stand up for what they believed to be right and correct. You know, that individual was taken out and not only banned from that and any subsequent events that we ever hosted, but our owner, John, who was there at the time, he very quickly said to him, and this client represented millions of dollars in revenue or potential revenue, that we didn't want to do business with them. That we had no concerns about stepping away from that situation, that didn't reflect the values of the company, and that we didn't want to engage in any relationship moving forward. And that was just a split-second decision, but I could see, you know what, I'm with the right network. I have the support around me, so that if that situation or any other situations that I get myself into, I have people that respect me and value me and believe that, you know, I am much more than anything that certain individual might have thought. And I think for me, it goes back to that network, you know, surrounding yourself with people around you that can lift you up, that are there for you, and that, you know, when things go wrong, they will have your back and they will put themselves at risk to showcase what they believe in and stand up for what is right.
Yeah, I'm listening to the story in shock. And I think this is the different perspective side, because, and I'm not saying it doesn't exist in sport, but it's a different environment. You know, I come from a sport where we were very muscular, and you know, I talk to young females, and you know, I often joke that we were built the opposite of swimmers. Swimmers have the wide shoulders and narrow hips, and we have the little shoulders and, you know, these big, especially if you look on TV, I mean, people just think that I'm, you know, 6'4" with these massive tree trunk legs. And I embrace that because, you know, and that's one of my things, is that in sport, muscle and sort of that strength is embraced perhaps more than in other environments. And yet I look at the situation, we're 2021, and are we there? And when I talk about that, because still there's such, you know, a label on girls and sort of how they look. And I know that girls, I'm looking at the 3 copying girls, and I'm talking to every female out there, is that, and having a 16-year-old girl, is that, strength, whatever that strength is, embrace it. And those are the people that you surround with. And in sport, I think I've been fortunate because, I lived in a sport for 23 years where we skated around in spandex. And I went to Afghanistan when I'd retired, and we did a walking patrol in Kabul. And the captain came up to me and he said, "Oh, do you feel odd? Because a lot of the men are looking, going, oh, female, walking in this group, and and thanking the men and sort of looking at you." And I turned to him and I said, "Sir, I spent 23 years in spandex." I said, "Nothing bothers me anymore." But that's sort of the sport environment. But it comes down again to your core values that, my legs are the smallest they've ever been, and I actually don't like it because I want to build them back up, and I want to be proud of muscle and strength, and, regardless of what people look, and if they say, "Oh, that girl has really big legs," oh, well, great. Like, I am proud of that. And it's the people that have surrounded me. And again, that's the environment. But, it's core values, and it's linking with the people who will support you regardless of what happens, regardless of mistakes, regardless of how you look, regardless of how you dress. And, I think probably a little more relevant later with one of the questions is talking about sort of that judgment side. But it's a bit of that, but again, it's it's different environments, but it's the people. It's the people that when you are perfect and when you're not perfect, which is probably most of the time, they will still love you and they will still embrace you and they'll still say that you're good enough and that you can say you're good enough.
So first of all, thank you for sharing. That's a very personal story, and thank you so much for sharing that. Challenges faced. I'm a woman in industries dominated by men, financial services, energy, infrastructure. I don't even know where to begin in terms of the challenges faced. Whether it's the, I was the only woman, actually I was the only person from MIT who was picked out of my year to go to McKinsey. So here I was at this management consulting firm, and I thought, okay, I just have to work hard and be twice as good as everybody else around me and just put my head down and go. What I didn't know at the time is that only gets you so far. Massive work capacity, massive analytical capacity, that only gets you so far. And as you go up in leadership, a lot more of the ad hoc things are more important than your horsepower. And so challenges, the events as a woman in financial services that I didn't get invited to. I don't play golf. And so I've never met a golf ball that I could hit, like literally, hit it. And so no hand-eye coordination. I am not strong. Like, I've had 8-year-old boys take me down. Like, it's just, or girls. Like, I'm not physically as strong as you are. I wish I was. You are my hero. Like, seriously. So challenges, not being included, not feeling myself in my own skin. The investor who walked past me to shake the hand first of the 23-year-old investment associate who worked for me. Now, I look good, but I don't look that young. And so I clearly was even when he saw my card that said president, he just ignored it and spoke to the guy. The moments at work where I was paralyzed because people said things or did things and I didn't have the power or the knowledge of how to respond. When they made jokes that were sexist, gender-based, racial-based, I just didn't know how to respond. The the rise, I think there's every decade there is a change in the world, whether it is driven by technology, by policy, or human call to action. There is an opportunity for the narrative in the world to change. We have seen that in our own time with the rise of #MeToo, with the Black Lives Matter movement, with the focus on women, equity, inclusion, diversity, where all of a sudden the behaviors of what is okay is just as managed with the behaviors of what is not okay. And it is being modeled by everybody around us. And so, you know, I think when I think about the challenges, I don't even know where to begin. Like, I have never felt, to your point, confident in the role I'm in. Like, I'm a firm believer in fake it till you make it. You know, it's you'll learn on the go. You figure it out as you go. And I've been really ruminating over the last little while on this concept of authenticity, right? Because everyone is talking about it. But as a woman and as a person of color, I heard somebody who I respect very much say something that just really resonated with me. That your level of authenticity is a direct reflection of your level of privilege in society. And so if I were to show up at a board meeting with my true self, all of the fun that I could poke, my completely irreverent and non-politically correct sense of humor, my experience base, my deep need for social justice and equity, inclusion, diversity, if I were to show up as that person, which is who I am, I would not be able to be effective as a leader. I would not be able to be effective in building connection, cohesion, agreement with a very disparate group of people. And so therefore, I have had to tamp down my authentic self. I can't show up as who I am. And you know what? That's okay. I've come to realize that that's okay. Because I think that you cannot change millennia stereotypes and millennia cultural beliefs with facts. You cannot change them with facts that, and there are so many facts to your point, there's so many facts that you educate a woman, you change a community. You educate a woman, you change economic prosperity. A woman in leadership has a different set of skills and capacities than a man. And there's value in a diverse board, a diverse leadership, a diverse society. But those facts do not change belief systems. The only things that change belief systems are questions that you leave with people that then force them into their own journey of self-discovery. And I'm wandering here a little bit on the topic, but when you ask this, the challenges faced, gosh, I didn't even know where to begin. I think I loved hearing your story about your leadership team going, that's not okay. Because I have been supported by so many people in the same way where they step up and they go, that's not okay. And that's a wonderful thing. And so that brings me to what are the ways that you address it? And I agree with both of my amazing colleagues here on the stage, which is it's a strong support system. I think, yes, you need to have a really strong sense of self, but just as important is you need to have a strong partner. I have an amazing husband as well, who is just a phenomenal support in my life. I have strong family connections, and I have a really strong peer support group. And just like you said, I have reached out and gotten inspiration and support from people like you guys. Like I'm meeting and I'm hearing your stories, and it's been amazing. And so, and I think that in this time of COVID, to your point, Minister, mental health and connectivity and having that human connection, we are missing it right now. And so it's going out and finding that support system that you can cling to, that will make you better, that will not be an energy vampire in your life, but rather that will rise you up or raise you up. I just, such a such a powerful, powerful thing, and I concur with what both of you have said on that.
I just feel so blessed right now to be part of this discussion. I wanted to say that the support network is so necessary for so many reasons, but so that you can be authentic. That's where I express my most authentic self. My poor husband, who's also an absolute angel, thank you, honey, is where your most authentic, goofy, inappropriate persona can come out so that you can have grace under pressure in those situations where I believe that all three of you have made significant changes in the culture by being who you are in a different setting versus our normal, authentic people that we show to the people we trust the most in our lives. And I would also like to just say, your anecdotal stories, like what you're telling, what you shared with us, impact so much for our younger audiences, their autonomy, and the privilege it is to be who they are, and that can never be taken for granted, and that our expectation is that our support systems will stand up for us, and we can't accept anything less than that. So thank you for that. And so I'm going to move on to my final question, and we're going to start with you this time, Katrina, and then we'll go to Gita, and we'll end with Marissa. So the next question is, who is your role model, and why?
Oh, goodness. How long do we have? You know, it's interesting because I look at people who have impacted me. I mean, I see, the first person would be my mom, who came to this country as a pharmacist, never used her pharmacy degree, had 3 daughters, went into French school, ended up becoming a French teacher just because she was trying to learn French to help her daughters. And this was not her strength, so she becomes a French teacher, and she went back to school in her 40s. So I sort of look at that thinking you can always start again, and you can always sort of be in, a different situation. And I look at, it's sort of odd, but I'm going to tell you a quick story about a gentleman who I met. And I talk about that judgment side and people knowing names. And, we often want to be, we have goals and we have dreams and we want to be a success. And, I used to think as an athlete, I want to stand on top of that podium because it means I've made it. No, it means I had a great race and I did something for my country and it's celebrated. But then what's next? What's the next day? And you keep going on. But the person I met in Salt Lake City was actually the person, I was carrying the flag, it was the person who was carrying the placard, the sign that said Canada. So he was actually leading our team in and I was behind him. And it was just before we entered the stadium and I met this gentleman. His name was Brian Maxwell. I said, great to meet you. How'd you get in this position of carrying the sign for Canada? And he looked at me and he said, I'm an Olympian. I said, great, for what country? I didn't feel good after that because he said, actually for Canada. I said, oh, sorry, I don't know your name, I didn't know your story. And he said, that's okay, I was a marathon runner and I'm a sprinter. So I'm thinking, oh my goodness, my event is 37 seconds, right? I'm so impressed, you're a marathon runner. And he said, I qualified for the 1980 Olympic team, and that's the year that Canada boycotted the games. Oh. And I'll never forget, he stood there and he looked at me and he said, here I am 22 years later. He said, I finally get my chance to walk into the stadium with Team Canada. And and then they called us, and he just explained to me that he'd created Power Bar, marathon runner, in his kitchen with his wife, and Power Bar was a sponsor of mine. And so it was just kind of this neat connection. We talked for 5 minutes, they called us, we entered the stadium, and he led the team. And I remember walking behind him thinking, Brian is amazing. He's not angry, he's not bitter, and I've met athletes who are part of that team, and I don't point a finger because I don't know how I would react if for political reasons they couldn't compete. But I just thought, one day I want to have a beer with Brian. I want to know why he is the way he is. And I watched him live his dream. That was his dream. And it was about 8 years later, I was talking to friends of mine with CBC, and I said, I'd love to find Brian. And they ended up investigating. Marathon runner, fit guy. He'd been out for a run, had a heart attack and died. And I never got to see him again, talk to him again, but I remember thinking, I watched this guy live his dream out. And, nobody knows his name, nobody knows his story, and I often just think about, you know, there's so many people, like my chair, Mary Moran, who's one of my role models right now, just her leadership, her all of this. And I just think of these people, and I think of Brian, and I think, you know, we are no different or no better, regardless of again, letters, accomplishments, you know, whether you're a CEO, whether you've, you know, government, whatever it is, whether you're housekeeping in a hotel, it doesn't matter. It's the impact you have on people. And so that's where sort of I go to that, you know, we're only able to be our very best. And it's not necessarily the best, it's our best. So I think at the end of the day, if you have said, I am as good as I could be, and it doesn't matter what you've actually, you know, checked, you might have checked a box on one and sort of just fallen just short on another. It's when you are your best, you for sure have had an opportunity to impact people. And, you know, I never got to say to Brian, wow, thank you. But, you know, you see these girls and you see the youngsters and these young ladies and even these young boys who are coming up, and you just think, you know, how can we inspire them? And how can we inspire each other and make an impact? So that's, my role models are every day.
Thank you. Wow, you just keep putting these gems on the table that I'm like literally writing down so that I can take them back and reflect on them more when I have more time. And I'm not wearing a mask. So, you know, my journey in terms of thinking about role models has changed over my life. Like, when I was in university, my role models were people who were top-notch in achievement, right? So I thought I was going to be a scientist, so I cared about scientists. When I went into finance, it was, you know, people like Christine Lagarde, because I thought she'd achieved the pinnacle of achievement. And then it became more about, to your point, impact. And so the first person who struck me from that was this phrase was Madeleine Albright, former Secretary of State for the United States, because I just heard this quote that she said, and this was, I don't know how old I was at the time, but she basically said there's a special place in hell for women who don't help other women. And I was just like, yes, that resonates with me. I love it. And so she became my role model then for a while. And then where I sit now today, where my role, again, is more being a coach to ensure that other people can do the job that they want to do, not just me, I again kind of revert back to impact at a different, more micro level. And that's now my new set of role models. I think as women in leadership, we stand on the shoulders of giants. Mm-hmm. And as I now am kind of moving into, you know, different ventures, these women are reaching down, grabbing my hand, or like, and pulling me up to help. I'll give you an example. One of Calgary's favorite, one of Alberta's favorite Calgarians here, Rana Ambrose. She literally has been helping me with the launch of this social impact initiative. And I have never before had my for-profit life fused so closely with my not-for-profit impact or desires. And I got very nervous. And she literally took a call with me, I'll never forget this, at, like, I don't even know, like 6 a.m., 7 a.m. in the morning, and spent like 2 hours on the phone with me, rehearsing me. And, you know, holding me up and basically saying, you got this, you can do this. There is no benefit to her from doing this. She did this because she is part of she's creating that change we want to see in the world, or we want the world to be. And I have met so many women throughout my journey, just like her. You know, Heather Colbert, Martine Ehrman, Jill Denham, like these are women and men who just, they had no reason to spend as much time as they have been with me in support and development and opening up their networks and their Rolodexes and encouragement and coaching, and they're doing that right now. And I have my first investor from SoftBank is on 20 years later, he's on a weekly call with me. He was my lead investor 20 years ago in my first startup. He's now on a call with me every week for an hour to help coach me through this. And so as I think about now my role models, it's those people. It's those people who are these unsung heroes who are doing what they are doing to help people like me and girls like that, get better, be better, do better for nothing other in response or return than they want to build a better, more inclusive, more just world where we are all successful. And right now, they are my role models.
Marissa?
Wow, thank you to both of you. I resonate with a lot of what you've said as well too, especially Katrina, the comments about it can be everyday people, and I think you absolutely hit on the nail that it's about the impact you have, right? It's not about the letters behind your name. It's not necessarily about a title. It isn't about what individual accomplishment. It's if you are making an impact that makes the world a better place and people around you a better place, I think that's what you really strive for, and that's true success. So I love that. I also have a number of role models in my life, and spanning from both personally and professionally, and individuals that I think, like to your point, Gita, you have these different phases of your life as well too, where it's you tie to it in a different way. It can be more impactful, and my grandmother was also a representation of an individual who went back to school very later in life, and she came from a traditional setting where there was very distinct roles in the house, right? And so she went back to go into nursing after I was alive at that time, this is well into her life. And at that point in time, my mother and father supported her to go back to school, and the agreement was that my grandfather would buy in as long as dinner was cooked and there was a drink on the table when he got back home from work, and then she could do a night shift. So, I mean, it was a balance, right? It wasn't totally there. He bought in, but he had work to do. But if I was to look to everything, and I know that this would be a cliche answer, but my biggest role model in my life has always been my mother, especially when it comes to this kind of theme and discussion. So my mother is the youngest of 7 in an Italian immigrant family. My grandparents, my grandfather had immigrated over. His parents lived with them. It was a very full household. And for the youngest child to get any attention, she had to fend for herself, and she had to be feisty, and she had to be pushy at times. And she learned a lot of life lessons, I think, just through those battles kind of growing up. She came out west. She was educated at UFC, and then of course moved home. As I noted, both my parents were entrepreneurs, so they started their own businesses. But she started when my brother and I were quite young. She always showcased to us how you can successfully balance being a loving, attentive, and devoted parent with what you want for your own life and potential career. And she was the one who always challenged you to step to the table. She was there for you. She loved you. She supported you. She made you feel like you could do anything, but she also wouldn't let you get away with anything. And if she knew that, you weren't being impactful and you could give more and you could step up, she challenged you to make sure that you could make that happen. I wasn't allowed, even though she was the one who told me to get out of the house and go somewhere and find a life and find a career, I also wasn't allowed to leave until I could show her that I could successfully balance a budget and I could live on my own. And then when, we went to buy our first house or get married, she was also there knocking at the door, like, have you updated that? Where are you at? So she just showcased in every step of my life, that empathy and compassion and that love, but also that fierceness and that fire. She's been incredibly involved in the community's first female president on her Rotary Club, one of the first female assistant district governors. When she moved to BC just recently, first thing she got involved with, she put service above all. And again, I've seen her go toe-to-toe with a number of very affluent individuals and never back down. So for me, she has inspired me my whole life and each and every day, and she's taught me a lot of lessons, and there's many more individuals along the way, but I think that at the core of everything, she's the one who's really given me the tools and the skills that I need to try and continue to be successful in my life and in my future.
Well, thank you so much. I think, ladies, this is about a call to action. And this is about those of us who have the privilege to be leaders in our communities, to be able to reach out. And as you were saying, it was actually a really beautiful visual. For me, I'm very visual, imagining people pulling you out. And it is about that, right? You have a certain ability to do things, but you're constantly being elevated by those who are continually educating us, right? Being able to take that information. I loved that visual. It's beautiful. And it's what I envision for women going forward, and that these young ladies are future leaders, that our lives are in very good hands, knowing that they are on your shoulders and being able to take that forward with such confidence, and knowing that having the discussion is as important as the process that you were in at that time. And it's quite emotional for me to see the generations here being impacted directly by your words. And I was at an event a few years ago when I first was privileged to have this ministry, and it was at the TELUS World of Science, and it was a group of senior women engineers who were having a discussion around women in the workforce and their barriers. But there was a group of young ladies around this side doing robotics downstairs, and when they came up and came around the corner, the ladies from engineering stood up and gave them a standing ovation as they came in. And the raw emotion of those young girls seeing these women who they look up to, giving them that standing ovation, you could just tell it was one of those moments. It was felt spectacularly special just to be there and watch what was going on. And the insight that you've given is just invaluable. And thank you for your honesty and your willingness to have your hearts really front and center in the candor with which you speak. It's what our young women need to, all of our young people need to hear, because we draw strength from those truths. And, for all of those who dream on becoming leaders, look who we have here. You have in front of you 3 women who are not only leading in their communities, but they're actively pursuing better lives and livelihoods as they're doing that, so that those of you who are watching them will be able to not only walk in their very, very big footprints, but they are paving the way and clearing a space so that as you come forward, you will continue with that work. So we know that everything that has happened was worthwhile as you come forward. And I look so forward to having future discussions. It's been a massive privilege for me to sit in your space with you and share this space with you, and to Genovia, Kat, and Natalia, and Mom, who's here as well too. So nice to see you, and of course, Emily Nixon as well too. Such a pleasure. To my dear friend, Minister Copping. What do I say to a gentleman who constantly works so hard to elevate, knowing that his girls are coming into this world, knowing that you are helping to make that path forward so that your daughters and all of our daughters and our sons, I have 2 sons, are the best people that they can be to pave that road together. And I'm like you, I turned 50 in September though, so I'm a little bit older than you. And my sons are 22 and 24. And there's no question in their minds of where they stand in this and what their roles and responsibilities are for elevating each other. And Minister Copping, the privilege is all mine to be with you here today, to do this work, to elevate, to continue the discussion, to make sure that we don't give up, because this is our moment. If there ever was one, this is it. So thank you so much. And Minister Copping, I'm going to turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Leela. And wow, That's all I have to say. It's, I'm humbled and honored to have fantastic leaders such as yourselves come here today and share your stories. Thank you for your honesty in sharing your stories. I was shocked when you shared your story, Marissa, and it shows that we still have a ways to go, but all of us can make a difference to change the culture in our workplaces, to create an opening and welcome culture, and ensure that we get the best people, regardless of gender, regardless of race, regardless of background, regardless of who they love, to come into our workplaces and make this not make our workplaces better, but make our province better. I have lots of people to thank here. So first and foremost, Gita, Marissa, Katrina, again, I love some of the comments. Service and volunteerism. Life is a jungle gym. Be bold and persevere. Believe in yourself. Be first and have a strong support system. Fantastic lessons that you can share, and inspiration for my daughters and for all young women out there who are wondering whether, can I be a leader? And you look at these leaders here, and the answer is yes, you can. And follow the advice, look for mentors, get through that jungle gym. You can do this. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. It is so important, and really what this event is all about. Leela, Minister here, thank you so much for chairing this. Your empathy, your thoughtfulness is always tremendously appreciated. You do a fantastic job in your role, and it's a pleasure to work with you. And also my colleague, Jeremy Nixon. And I also want to thank AGAT Labs and AGAT Foundation. Without them, this wouldn't have been possible. This is a tremendous facility, and I want to thank them for doing it, and also ensuring that we can do it in a safe way from a COVID standpoint, putting plexiglass in place. And I want to wish AGAT Foundation all the best in building their new facility, which will be Parkdale, my riding, Calgary Varsity, that they're building this year. And I also want to thank Silver Cove Limited. You can see these beautiful rocks on stage. That has been provided by Silver Cove, a local Alberta firm, Chris and Melissa Roback. So thank you to them for providing that. I want to thank my daughters, right, for doing such a great job of introduction and coming forward today. And it's fantastic, and I'm having a proud papa moment here, right now.
Hear, hear.
Most of all, I want to thank you. Thank you all for joining us here today for this incredible conversation. And I want to urge you to make a donation to one of our two fantastic charities that support women and generally, and also support women in leadership roles, Fast and Female and the Calgary Y. So please go online and make a donation today. And together, we can continue to build inclusive and welcoming workplaces in our province and an inclusive and welcoming Alberta. Thank you so much for coming, and have a great afternoon.
We're just supposed to stay put.